And joining us now are our CBS 21 News political insiders, Tony May on the Democratic side and Charlie Giroux on the Republican side. Gentlemen, thanks for being here.
Always good to be here.
Always good to see you guys. And we want to begin now with the end of session. A lot of bills didn't get heard. One in particular was widening the use of guns on streets. And this obviously ended when the session ended. Do you think that's going to make a comeback when the session begins again? Tony, we'll start with you.
Well, with an all-Republican legislature leadership and a Republican governor, I wouldn't be surprised to see what they call the Castle Doctrine bill come back. It was not one of the most urgent bills. Perhaps a more urgent bill that did not get done was the bill that would help solve our state's pension crisis, or space out the number of years that crisis could be repaid. But the Castle Doctrine, I don't think is going to go away.
Well, Charlie, was that a strategic move on the Republican part to make sure they don't vote on the pension fund just yet?
No, I don't think so, and I wouldn't necessarily describe it as expanding the use of guns on streets. This is a bill that allows people to defend themselves against deadly criminal assailants outside their homes. Has a lot of popular support, and I think it will be passed in January and become law under Governor-elect Corbett.
And a lot of people are for the Castle Doctrine because, like you just said, it gives them a bigger defense if they are being threatened. And
criminals hate it. Law-abiding citizens like it.
Well, police officers also have some reservations about it, some serious reservations, but because if you're an undercover police officer, you don't know who's going to be coming at you.
It always creates a lot of debate. Yeah. Okay, Tony, how did you feel about the third of the House members in the House chamber bemoaning the lack of the session because they wanted to vote on the pension bill and some other things that they felt were ready to be passed?
Well, this was something that the Republican leadership in the Senate and the Republicans in the House had promised. They weren't going to come back after the election in what's called the sine die or lame duck session. So I would assume that a majority of the General Assembly didn't want to come back, but that pension bill was really important, and it had been passed earlier by the House, then passed by the Senate with some amendments, but it was looking, with the unions, the state employee unions were looking forward to the bill. It's a real shame they didn't get it done.
The Republicans in the Senate for many years have said we're not going to do anything substantive in these sine die or lame duck sessions. That's the right public policy, and I think Tony and I would agree on that. You shouldn't have members that have no real stake in the game making critical decisions for the Commonwealth. Both of those pieces of legislation that you mentioned, Rob, are going to be up for votes early in the new session. I think what this is going to do, actually, is force the legislature to do things more timely. I think that's a good thing. I think you're going to see a lot of substantive reforms, procedural as well as policy-wise, in the new General Assembly. Speaker Smith, Majority Leader Turzai, the Majority Whip Stan Saylor, a great team, geographically balanced, skill set balanced. I think you're going to see a new way of doing business in Harrisburg and a lot more cooperation across the aisles to get things done.
Who authorized that ad?
Yeah, I was just going to say. And the thing to turn to you and say is cooperation or just railroad?
Right.
No, I think there will be cooperation. I think that both parties got a message in this last election that people want to see things get done and see less of that posturing and roadblocks.
Now, we have some extra time, and we talked about this a little bit yesterday here on CBS 21 News. Attorney General Tom Corbett, now governor-elect, he has a big choice ahead of him. He has to pick someone to fill his spot. There's a couple of names being thrown around. Any choices that stick out for either one of you?
Well, I think there's a lot of hometown support for our local DAs here in Cumberland County and in Dauphin County, and I think those would be good choices, but I don't know what's going to get the support of the Senate majority as well. Charlie might have a better sense because it's a Republican thing.
It is a Republican thing. The interesting thing is that Bill Ryan, who is the first deputy, will take over as acting Attorney General under statute until a successor is named. It could be him. The critical question, in my judgment, is going to be, will the Senate require that whoever the governor nominates, in order to be confirmed, pledge not to run for election?
That's what I was going to ask you.
That's going to be the critical dimension, because that will take off of the table some of the would-be suitors for the office if they have to say, I won't run for election in 2012. So I think that's going to be a critical dimension. If it isn't, Both Dave Freed and Ed Marsico, the two gentlemen that Tony alluded to, are outstanding choices, seasoned career prosecutors, but there are an awful lot of others from different parts of the state. There's going to be geopolitics playing into this, as well as just good old-fashioned credentials. But Tom Corbett, a prosecutor himself all his life, will certainly pick the person that he believes to be the most qualified and best prosecutor. I think he'll let political considerations fall by the wayside to the greatest extent possible.
And a lot of unfinished work to be done.
Absolutely.
A lot.
Sure is, yeah.
All right, we'll see how that plays out, gentlemen. Thank you so much for being here, as always. And you can catch our Political Insiders every Tuesday right here on CBS 21 News at 5:30.